Welcome to another edition of Ailene's Arcane Archive. I'm your pajama archivist, Louise, one half of the Ailene Lynn Ray writing team. Today we are going to look at epic fantasy. And with epic fantasy, you usually get yourself a chunker of a book, which is absolutely fabulous because you get to really delve into some deep world building. So today we're going to look at Soul Stealer by McInerney. Hopefully I'm saying her name right. But this one kind of puts the epic in epic fantasy. It is about, she creates such fantastic world building in three separate, very distinct peoples and cultures that you follow throughout this book. And it has a very disturbing kind of bad guy or evil in this story. Let me go ahead and give you the synopsis on the back and see if this might be the kind of epic fantasy you're looking for. 5 centuries, 3 peoples, 1 war. An endless feud between nations, sorcerers who steal souls to feed their eternal life. A world so broken by magic that those who wield it are shunned and despised. Skilled hunter Ina hides a deadly secret. She has the dark god's powerful magic, blamed for the genocide of her people 5 centuries ago. If anyone finds out, they'll execute her. When she learns that her lover's daughter has the same magic, she must decide whether to reveal her secret to save the child. But her decision will determine not only the child's fate, but that of the whole world, because the cycle of violence has begun again, and prophecy decrees she must be the one to end it. The alternative is the unraveling of all creation. So yeah, big stakes and in a big, detailed, beautiful world. So I invite you to find your comfy space. Get yourself your beverage of choice. Sit back and relax, and let me tell you a story. Soul Stealer by McInerney. Prologue. The man called Illis stared down into the pit. They were all laid out in neat little rows, gathered by the scavengers from the battlefields. Bones. Leg bones, arm bones, hand bones, foot bones, skulls, rib cages, and backbones. The bones of men, the bones of women, the bones of dogs and wolves. The sinew, tendon, and half-rotted muscle, guts and slime and blood, talons of bears and birds, wicked and sharp. Burning sun blazed down on it all, raising a putrid stink. Maggots worming and feeding, crows circling and screeching. Death, death, here is death. But it was he who was the Lord of Death. Death, his dominion and his domain, the army that marched at his command. Through death he would conquer life, and in conquering life he would be the master of all. He opened his mind to the tapestry, to the myriad glimmering threads that bound all creation together. Then he made a hole, a careful splice in the fabric. On the other side laid chaos, that vast primordial power, the source and end of all things. He reached through with invisible fingers and made himself the channel. Chaos poured into him, a raging torrent, a searing, singular agony. He screamed. He screamed and he screamed. His heart stopped, his bones bent and broke, his blood became fire. Weeping, he took hold of the threads, wove them with the flood of chaos, spun out 1,000 filaments of life-giving power. Shimmering strands found gory remains of things once alive, curled and wrapped around them. Attached gut and sinew to bone, put light into empty eye sockets, gave an instinct to kill and wound and maim. Ilk rose together. 1,000 strong, they climbed out of their pit, the stench of death around them. Each one connected to the tapestry and to his will. His enemies would crumble before his army, tremble and fall to their knees as the dread took them, and when they died, they would rise again and be his. Chapter 1. Ina. Those cursed with Siut's power may not remain in this world, for they are a danger to all creatures who live in it, and indeed to the cloth itself. Teachings of Old Sioux. Ina stared up at the jagged, knife-edged slopes of the mountain that contained her destiny. Collared and green at the base, it rose steeply to pierce the mists far above, its bare crown lost in swirling white. Long ago, the elders said, fire had belched out of its insides, but now it was still and quiet. If the mountain itself was silent, though, its slopes were not. All manner of creatures lived among the rocks and trees, and one in particular that she would soon seek. An elbow in her ribs jolting her out of her reverie. OU, her hunting partner. Then she realized why. The two elders were speaking, giving their blessing to the 4 assembled hunters. Chel, weaver of this world, creator of all creatures, great and small, walk with these your people, they intoned. Hands outstretched toward them, feathered headdresses shivering in the morning breeze. They seek to join themselves with the rulers of the sky, as we have ever done and as you have always willed it. The Drakiri, Ina thought. It was the Drakiri that they joined with in the past, and on whose backs they had flown, but the Drakiri had been lost in the exile, so now they must make do with the lesser birds. The elders continued, steer them to their prize, and shield them from Siut and his wiles, that they may return to us whole and hearty, strengthened by their new bond. As always, Ina shivered to hear Siut's name, and was reminded that the Chaos God never strayed far from her, that he had claimed her as his own, even if she sought to reject him. The elders lowered their hands. The elder Naomi spoke. You know the rules of the trial, but I will say them again as is customary. You have 2 nights and 3 days to climb Ilaj-Ai and retrieve the hunting bird. Those of you who succeed will become Jakiri, sky hunters. Only the best of the best achieve the title, but it wouldn't be enough for her. Ina ya, Muak ya. It is your responsibility to lead your partners, and if you return successful, you will also become hunt leaders for the village. As he spoke, Ina glanced at Muak, who towered above everyone else, and a full head above her hunting partner. His broad face was set with resolve. I'll show them I'm greater than you. In this you will not win. Her eyes moved to Suni, her beloved, and Muak's bondmate, standing a few paces away. She was striking as always, her fine black hair sparkling in the early morning light, her eyes shining palest honey. Strung around her neck and over the swell of her breast was her thick healer's garland of green grasses, a reminder that she was there not just to wish them well, but to tend anyone who might be injured in the trial. Clinging to the long yellow bark cloth wrapped around her hips was her daughter, Tawny. She looked much more like Suni than Muak, a fact that greatly pleased Ina. The elders stepped away, allowing others to come and wish them well. Of course, Suni went first to Muak, Tawny close beside her. Ina tried to look like she didn't care. I'm going to win. I'm going to show them who's best. Suni said a few words to Muak low and close to his ear so that Ina couldn't hear, while Tawny threw her arms around his thighs, too small to reach any higher. But Ina's mother, Mia, was on her then, drawing her attention away. Through your skill you will prevail, but be mindful of Siut, who can lead even the best of us astray, she said. Ina heard the warning in her words, in the formality with which they were spoken. Mia still didn't trust Ina to resist the temptation of her cursed gift, didn't believe she had become such a good hunter without its aid. Ina tried to stamp on her anger, but her answer was stiff. Chel will guide me. Her mother attempted a smile, but it didn't hide the concern marked in her amber eyes and the lines of her brow. I pray they will. She pressed Ina's hand, then stepped away to allow Suni to approach her. You know I must wish you both success, Suni said, a smile, a true one, rising an ache in Ina's chest. Whichever of you succeeds in this contest, our people will have gained a valuable hunt leader, maybe 2, and that's what truly matters. No, it's not, Suni thought. Suni kissed her cheek and then turned to Tawny, who was still talking to her father. When she had steered the child away, the elders signaled for them to begin. The hunters didn't hesitate. Muak and Renki chose the winding route that went around the eastern side of the mountains, where many crest hawks were known to nest, but she and Oyu made for the narrow track that led directly up the mountain's misty heights. Dense ferns crowded on either side, some reaching as high as their heads, but it hadn't rained for weeks, so the earth was dry, and they were able to cover the ground at a jog. Are you sure this is a good idea? Oyu said. It will be so much easier to get a crest hawk. We can beat Muak and Renki by getting back with it first. We're going to catch a mist eagle. There would be no turning aside from this goal. Either she succeeded or she failed utterly. Nothing in between would do. But no one has ever managed to capture one, Oyu complained. We'll be humiliated. It's going to take most of the day just to get up to that nest. I heard you the last 20 times. Maybe if I say it often enough, you'll finally listen to reason. You agreed to be my second. Are you changing your mind? Oh, you let out a grunt. No, I swore to you. And stop talking and save your energy for the climb. He was quiet after that, but she could sense his frustration, see it in the bunching of his shoulders and the set of his jaw. We'll get the Mist Eagle. I'll show him that I'm the best. I'll show them all. She pictured the birds in her mind, with their white plumage and dark blue breasts. She had seen them many times swooping down to pluck a fish from the sea or circling high up in the mists. They might not be as large or as powerful as the Jakiri, but on these islands they were undisputed rulers of the skies, twice as large as a crest hawk, infinitely more difficult to capture. Yet Ina had found a nest they could reach, and she was going to get one. They continued jogging until they were almost a quarter of the way up the mountain. Then the path became steeper and more difficult, and it wasn't worth the risk of a twisted ankle. They entered the cloud layer close to midday, where many trees thrived alongside the ferns. The dominant sound here was a constant dripping, interspersed with the croaking calls of ashex and the distant howls of trapper monkeys. It was much cooler, but the exertion kept them warm, and Ina drank deeply of the sense of wet earth and moldering leaves. When they broke out of the fog, the sun had well passed its midpoint in the sky. It quickly burnt off the droplets of moisture that clung to their skin and hair, but it wasn't as hot as it had been at the base. It was impossible not to stop a moment and look around. From here it was like they were floating on the top of the world. All around them spread the mist, blanketing much of the island, except for the edges where they became tattered, displaying flashes of coastline. Her eyes turned northward to the other islands. The two smallest, Yon Il and Urik Il, were invisible, but Olin Il's highest peak poked sharply through clouds. The tips of the mountain ridge that formed the spine of Con Il were also visible, rising even higher than Ilij I. Her father would be there somewhere on the western coast with his new family. She'd sent word about her trial, but he'd not deigned to come and see her off. The old pain writhed in her. I was never good enough for you, was I? So what is next, hunt leader? OU said, squinting up at the mountain. Ina decided to ignore his teasing tone and turned her attention back to the mountainside. The nest is at the top of that ridge, she pointed. The ridge ran parallel to the path they were on, but crossing over it required a sheer descent and an even sheerer climb. Could you have found a more awkward spot? He groaned. 100 more, she replied. This one we can actually get to, if we don't kill ourselves. If all you're going to do is complain, I can do this without you, Ina snapped. Couldn't he see that this was her destiny, their destiny? Let's just get on with it, he muttered. We can tie a rope there and slide down. She pointed to an outcrop of rock. OU uncoiled the rope he was wearing around his neck and did as she suggested, then tossed it down the mountainside. I'll go first, he said, already turning himself around and taking a grip on the rope. He descended swiftly, arm under arm, legs coiled around the rope. As soon as he hit the ground, she was over the side to follow him. To reach the other ridge, they had to scramble over rock and scree, sometimes using their hands to stop themselves from falling, but they were both fit and agile, and while it slowed them, it was no great obstacle. This is going to be fun, OU said dryly, when they finally got to the bottom of the second ridge. She stared up at the pocked seams of gray and black rock. Yes, it would be dangerous, but there were plenty of hand and toe holds, and the challenge of it made her pulse run faster. OU should have felt the same, but she didn't understand why he was so negative. It made her harsh toward him. Then just stay here. I don't need you. You might need help if the parents are there, he said grudgingly. He was right. She wouldn't be able to take a fledgling from such an awkward spot while also fending off an angry mother. Fine, but I'll go first. She opened a pouch at her waist and tipped out powdered chalk onto her palm, rubbing her hands together until they were caked in it. OU silently did the same. Then she unhooked her water skin and set it down on the ground along with her night pack. The only things she would take with her were her belt knife and a sack slung over her shoulder in which she could carry the bird. This done, she returned her attention to the rock face, craning her neck to find the first toe and handholds, the most efficient route to her destination. When she was satisfied, she wedged her right foot into the first crack and pushed herself up. She moved quickly, strength and experience lending her speed. At the same time, it was hard not to feel the yawning gap that was growing between her and the ground. Soon she was high enough that any fall would kill her. She knew better than to look down, though, keeping her attention on the rock wall, on tracing the path ahead. Sweat stung her eyes, threatening to blind her. and she rubbed her forehead against the back of her arm. But the chalk was working well, keeping her palms from becoming slippery. The top was in sight, and her elation grew the closer she got to it. A whole lifetime waiting for this moment. Soon, so soon, she would have her prize. She swung her right hand up to the next hold, a crooked finger of black rock, but as she transferred a weight onto it to seek a higher position for her right foot, it snapped off. Chell! Her chest contracted in fear, sending blood rushing about her body, lending her strength while she sought a toehold for her foot. But while it soon found a home, she could find no new grip for her hand. She leaned back as far as she dared, looking left and right for other options. Stock? OU called. She didn't answer. It was obvious. Can you jump down to that ridge just to the right of you and below? From there, I think I see a way. Ina glanced down. The ground seemed very far away. Their pack's tiny specks and dizziness swept over her. She swallowed dryly, focusing on her breathing to quell the rising tide of fear. I've climbed this high before, and I don't fall, ever. Do you see it? She could, a tiny shelf of rock. If she misjudged the jump, she was almost certain to tumble to her death. She looked up and around again. The only other option she could see was another jump, but upwards, an even riskier prospect. Are you sure there's a way from there? She said, turning to face him again. Yes. There was a trace of impatience in his voice. This is the part I hate. But she reminded herself of the prize, visualized the look on Muak's face, on everyone's face, when she returned with a mist eagle. Dare Chell guide me. She tried to banish all thoughts of Siut to hide herself from him. Then she counted herself down. 3, 2, 1, go! Out into the open air she sprung. Her right foot landed on the ledge, but her left missed, her toes scraping painfully down, dragging the rest of her with them. She scrabbled wildly, caught the fingers of her right hand on a tiny wedge of rock, just enough to stop the fall, to get her second foot onto the ledge. The shock hit her when she was standing safe, leaving her shaking and fragile. I made it. It's all right. It's not far now. Chell is with me. Chell is with me. She breathed as she'd been taught, expanding her belly to fill her lungs with air before slowly expelling it. Her heart slowed in response, but was still beating hard when OU joined her on the ledge. There was barely space for them both, his shoulder pressing tightly against hers. That was a close one, he said. Reminds me of that time we climbed the spine of Con Il. If your belt hadn't snagged on that bush, you looked so ridiculous, she forced a laugh. What was that, 4 cycles ago, he said, head up to the blue sky, eyes focused inwards. 5, she said. You were still a skinny boy. Which was why I missed and you didn't. We'll say that was the reason. She was teasing him, but it was the truth. OU had been late to come into his growth, and she'd been taller than him for many years. Now, though, he had several fingers height on her. Do you see the way? He pointed at the rock face. She followed the line of his finger. Yes, it was doable. Easy, even. Let's go. It took her only 4 movements to reach the top, and very soon she was curling her fingers around the edge of the ridge and pulling her body up and over. The ridge was extremely narrow, its sides sweeping down vertiginously on either side of her. One misstep, and she was done for. At least there was little wind, and she had often tested her balance on narrow branches. This was nothing new to her, other than the drop. Don't think about it. She stepped onto the ridge, foot before foot, arms out. Behind her she heard OU join, but she didn't look back. There was only forward now, and she was so close to the prize. Finally, she estimated she'd reached the point above the nest and hunkered down, putting her arms onto the rock and sliding her knees around each side of the ridge to grip in between them. Then she lowered her torso and leaned out to find the nest. She'd been so intent on maneuvering into position that she hadn't noticed the unusual silence, a silence that revealed itself as emptiness when she looked for the nest. It wasn't there. There were no birds. At first she thought she was looking in the wrong spot and cast her eyes up and down seeking the nest, but no. There was the ledge, covered in scattered twigs and broken blue eggshells. The babies had once been here, but were there no more. Something had destroyed the nest. A storm, perhaps, but it was a devastating blow. Her chance was gone. She would come back with no mist eagle. She would come back with nothing at all, and Muak would win again. She suddenly felt so heavy and weak she almost tumbled off the ridge. Her head fell against the rocks, tears prickling her eyes. This can't be. This can't be. And that is an excerpt from Chapter 1 of Soul Stealer by L. McInerney. So, if you like what you heard and you are a fan of epic fantasy and long epic fantasy books, then this might be the series for you. We'll have all of the information down in the details of where you can pick up a copy of your own. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. And I'd like you to remember, as always, your life is a story, so go out and live it.